Hi, I'm Ellie Farrar, and so for the first question, what is conflict and how it plays out in my life, is I said there are different ways to come with a definition of conflict. When speaking of conflict, what would immediately come into my mind would be most likely how the differences and disagreements make such an occurrence to spring up. It can be really described as a disagreement among any group or individual characterized by any antagonism and hostility. This is usually fueled by the opposition of one party and another in an attempt to reach an objective difference from that of the other party. There are a lot of elements involved in the conflict, and they have varied sets of principles and values, thus allowing such a conflict to arise. Conflict really comes naturally to anyone. The clashing of thoughts and ideas is just a part of the human experience. It is true that it can be really destructive if left uncontrolled and not in a safe environment. However, it shouldn't be seen as something that can only cause negative things. A lot of positive things can also come from conflict as well. It is also a way to come up with more meaningful realizations that can certainly be helpful to any individuals involved. The positive outcomes through conflict can be reached through an effective implementation of conflict resolution, which I think is a really big part of the definition of conflict. Because conflict can be seen as an opportunity for learning and understanding our differences. For me personally, I see a lot of conflict at work as I am a CNA and I work with kids that have special needs. I also have a lot of conflict with my family at the current moment right now, so it's playing a huge part in my life, but just from this course alone, it's really started helping me balance all of that out. For the next question, it says, are there specific conflict theories that I find interesting or that I can find myself relating to? I don't really think that I fall into any of the conflict theories right now. I think I'm still just trying to find out who I am in relation to conflict, as I'm not the best person to have conflict with because I get really defensive and aggressive. And I just want the conflict to be resolved, so I get mad. This course has just really helped me grow, but I think that I have a lot more areas to improve upon before I can dedicate a sole theory to myself and my direct conflict style. For the next one, thinking about the 5 conflict styles presented in the textbook, and the 8 conflict styles presented by the intercultural conflict, I didn't really identify with the intercultural conflict as much as I did with our personal conflict book. But I would say that the one I adhere to most would be in the competition category, as this is defined as competition could be advantageous. While there are genuine scarce resources, time is short, it's fun, or achieving a goal can be more important than the relationship involved, or it's like with your friends or your family or at work. But if the competition is not advanced through any tactics that humiliate and destroy people, it can be effective and appropriate. But however, there are a lot of dangers, and one danger with this style would be that the loser can gain a powerful motivation for retaliation and destructive power struggles may ensue. There's also a lot of disadvantages to competition, such as when relationships are harmed or the other party just feels humiliated. An example that I thought of is a couple that is conflicting over which movies to see is going to result, obviously, in one person winning. Both will go to the winning movie as they're going on a date, but the loser can use really passive-aggressive tactics to ensure that the winner does not have a good time, even though they won, such as delaying the departure and getting to the movies, or talking during the movie, or being disruptive. In cases of this, the price of winning may be too high. I think I would really shy away from avoidance because it makes me super anxious to ignore any obvious disputes and issues. If there is a dispute and an issue, I want it taken care of now. Because if you ignore me, it's just going to make me even more mad, then the conflict just isn't healthy because I'm going to get angry and competitive. So the definition of avoidance is literally withdrawing from a situation to avoid it and not engaging in those issues that need to be confronted. I also really don't like this because things like that build up inside of you, and then it can cause a bigger conflict if you don't address it from the beginning. So if you keep just avoiding that conflict, then someone's going to get even more mad, and then it takes just one thing for that person to blow up, and you're talking about an issue that happened months ago. For the next one, I said, how does your conflict style display at work, school, or with your family, or in your intimate relationships? At work, I would say the conflict is typically more professional and mostly constructive. Like, you just have to watch what you say so you don't get fired, and you can maintain the job with family. Though I usually just full send how I'm feeling with no regards for anyone or even myself. I just spew out of my mouth what I feel. I just really hate confrontation, so if we're gonna fight, then I want to let it happen is really how I am with, like, when I fight with my family. Although this is never how I would have a conflict at work. I don't really have any conflict or typical ways that I would deal with it at school. Most of my classes are online, so it doesn't really relate. I really don't think there's a direct way that people have a conflict. I just think it really varies from setting and what the conflict is about. The next question says, is there anything you would like to change about your conflict management style, and how would you go about doing that? Some things I would do differently or need to work on would be to take time to consider whether competing is in the appropriate mode, weighing my pros and cons. Also by making an effort to listen and be open to alternative proposals, giving them respectful consideration, etc. I also would evaluate the possible impact of all of the options under consideration, just being honest with myself regarding any personal or like historic relationship problems that may be impacting my feelings and beliefs about the disagreement. Also, I just need to recognize that my desire to be competitive is going to probably have a negative impact on my relationship with the person in a disagreement with if I don't go about doing it the right way. I need to allow the person to first thoroughly explain their position, asking clarifying questions. And then another really big thing I need to work on is summarizing and repeating what I have heard to assure there's mutual understanding and to let that person know that I was listening, what they were saying. And the next one says, identify a current conflict you're in and what are the steps you could use to manage and resolve the conflict and what barriers are doing that. So I would say the current ongoing conflict I have is definitely at work. It's with the trainer / activities lady at my work. I'm seeing a kid right now that needs to be meeting his social goals with peers, but he has really bad anxiety and autism, so he gets anxious and then he just shuts down. They do these activity like rotation centers on Tuesday, and she wanted me to get him to go to it so he could meet that goal. But as soon as we got there, he immediately wanted to leave. He just started shutting down, having anxiety, saying he just wanted to stay with me and no one else. So when I met with this lady, she didn't like that and has been getting on me to try to force him to go, which I'm telling her that neither myself or his mom is comfortable with that and that we shouldn't be forcing him to do anything, especially when I'm appropriately documenting how he was struggling with meeting these goals. I'm trying to remain professional and asking her if there are any alternatives to having him go to the center for that, like meeting up with another kid, but she isn't meeting me there, which I would say is a main barrier. I'm also pushing to actively work with her despite her being a wench, but there are really just strong barriers and conflict between us right now. I am thinking of confronting her about it in a way where the environment is both safe and controlled and just going forward with that. But that's all for the questions. Thanks for listening.